Welcome to the Dominance Academy, where we specialize in revitalizing manhood and leadership. Our approach focuses on developing men to lead with strength and passion, enriching their lives and their families. We provide practical solutions and expert guidance in the realms of sexual education and the mysteries behind polarity and structured power dynamics. Join us at thedominanceacademy.com and restore harmony to your home while rediscovering the joy of a fulfilling masculine presence. It's time to step into your role as a leader and as a man. And now the host of the show, Mr. Justin.
Good evening. Welcome back to the Dominance Academy. I'm your host, Justin Adams. And, we're going to talk about reclaiming leadership. Reclaiming leadership. You know, because I come across a number of guys who, they're stuck in the typical situation. They're with a long-term girlfriend or wife, and things have they've kind of like either started off or they've molded their way into being a more or less an egalitarian setup, and they can feel it. I think guys can feel this when they're in faulty relationships, and by faulty I mean where the genders and the roles and the energies are just all skewed. They're all messed up. And wait a second. Let me just double check my audio here. Oh, yeah, we're good. Okay. It's where things are just skewed. Roles are messed up, genders are messed up, energy's all messed up. And you can feel it. And I think that the woman can feel it as well. I think that she can feel this as well. No, I've never heard that before. Deluxe. Yes. But yeah, so they've been in these egalitarian setups, and you hear it often being described as like a, what do they call it? Like a roommate situation where they're together. It's like everything's okay, right? But maybe their wife is a little bit bossy or whatever here and there, but they feel like they've got a roommate basically. Like they no longer have sex, because in order for sex to happen, there needs to be polarity. There really does. There needs to be polarity in order for sexual energy to happen. And you don't really notice this during the limerence period. Okay, so the limerence period is the period of time when two people get together, like first off, and it can last, I think they say, anywhere from like 3 months to I think upwards of a year, where your brain is just flooded with all kinds of feel-good chemicals, and you just think this person's awesome, they think you're awesome, and you're so happy to be around each other, and you're fucking all the time, and then you rely on that. And then you don't realize that it actually requires some action, a little bit of strategy and mindfulness in order to maintain polarity. Until it's something that becomes natural to you, right? So, but for the most part, guys it's not natural to them, because if it was, they wouldn't be in that situation in the first place, right? So yeah, we're going to be talking about that. And and what you can do to kind of strike back and reclaim your position as a leader, So I think first off, I think you got to understand that you have to more than just want to be in a position of leadership. Okay, because you have to understand the responsibilities that come from being in that position. All right. Like too many guys, they say they want it. They want to be in the position of leadership, but they don't really understand what that means, what it means when, your woman is looking up to you and looking to you for guidance, not only on like the day to day, but on an emotional level. Like she's looking to you on basically how to like help her understand how to self-regulate and how to manage her emotions in various situations. And she's going to be looking to you for this. So, and it goes deep into her sense of self. And if you're not interested, and, because you can become equipped, but if you're not interested in doing that sort of thing, if you think that's some kind of a burden or that you shouldn't have that kind of responsibility, then perhaps leading a relationship isn't for you. And because like I've heard this, I was on Clubhouse the other day listening to this guy, and he was like, he was like talking about how men should be leaders, but women should be fully, able to regulate their own emotions. And I think that's asking for too much. I think that's asking for someone to be leading themselves. And if they're leading themselves, then they don't necessarily need a leader, right? So, you can't have it both ways. Now, you can teach her, okay? So yes, I would say like just a basic level of emotional regulation is important. That's part of just being an adult. But for women, it's a little bit different, I think. And so like through you can then teach her how to regulate her emotions. And, and I think that a lot of guys, they don't understand that this is part of it. This is part of being a leader in your relationship. And you don't want to just, when she comes to you with some shit, you don't want to just sit there with your thumb up your ass, not knowing what to do. And so this is a skill that you absolutely need to learn in order to guide her through her emotions and bring her to another state. So one of those skills, like in order to do that, like I guess like a prerequisite to that is being somewhat detached. And this is difficult for guys because say their woman is upset, even if it's not about them, the guy will take it upon himself. Like he'll absorb her feelings, like almost like an empath or something like that. And he'll like start to feel bad or start to feel guilty or I don't know what the word is, but like a deer in the headlights, like not knowing what to do. And it'll make him feel uncomfortable. Like generally speaking, he's just in a state of discomfort when his woman is upset. And this is like, you cannot be in this position. Like you really, really need to learn how to detach yourself from getting wrapped into her emotional states. And guys will do this. And, a lot of times they'll be like, they'll be afraid to engage. They'll be afraid to allowing her to express herself. And for fear of just not knowing what to do, how to handle the situation. And it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad because it shows her that you're just kind of like leaving her out in the breeze. Like, she's under some sort of turmoil and you don't know how to handle it. So you just kind of like, you're just there. And that's going to make her feel like you're just letting her flap around in the breeze. And so you have to be able to ground her by, first of all, you yourself being grounded. This is what's really important. You can't allow yourself to become wrapped into those emotions and become part of them, okay? Because she's in a chaotic situation. You don't want to join the chaos and also be chaotic and, have an unsolid footing under yourself, all right? So that's sort of like a prerequisite to being able to detach from the situation. And it allows you to have the, the emotional control and the mental and emotional fortitude, because, that's what she's looking for. That's what she needs from you as a man. She needs you to be that calm and that grounded, because she's not. Okay. And if you're uncertain, like if she can sense your uncertainty, it's going to just make things worse. If she senses you being like a deer in the headlights, it's going to be worse. So it's almost like you have to come to it like you've been here 1,000 times before, and it's no big deal. What's up, King Ken? Good to see you, man. Yeah, so you have to kind of treat it in that way. You got to treat it in the fashion like you've done this 1,000 times before, and it's no big deal. It's just another instance, not a thing. But you're not like ignoring the situation either. So she needs to know that you're there, but you're not wrapped in. So how does this pertain to taking back leadership? All right. So what's going to happen is that when you start asserting yourself. So first of all, well, let's back it up. In order to make that change, in order to create the polarity and to create an imbalance, basically that's what you're doing. You're forcibly creating an imbalance, because in an egalitarian thing, it's somewhat balanced, I guess, in theory. Typically, though, it's just more weighted on the side of the woman in most cases. But anyways, you're seeking to unbalance what is currently the state. All right. And so in order to do that, you need to have balls. Like if you don't have the balls to do this, then it's never going to work. And so what's in it to, have balls? Like, what does that mean? Like, let's not get just stuck in terminology, right? So having balls, really what that pertains to is being okay with losing her. All right. So that's one major part. Okay. And I talk about the axe and the hatchet and the compass. So this is you like pulling the axe out from the shed and tucking it into your belt loop. Okay. And so you gotta be able to have that. Like the fear of losing her has to be gone. It has to be completely eradicated. And then, from there, yeah, you just have to have the courage to let her go. And this is again, like challenges the things that are like very deep within guys, because if you were not set up this way to begin with, then you wouldn't find yourself in this situation. And so now you're trying to utilize something that's not even there, right? So you're trying to unearth this stuff and make it real when it's not been part of you for a very long time, if not ever. Okay. So it's basically donning a new aspect of your persona and trusting that it's going to work. All right. So the other part of having balls is not being afraid of her getting upset. Like if she gets upset, okay. Right. And that kind of relates to what I was talking about earlier, just the having that calm and not being dragged into her emotions, and also not being affected by her emotions. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, Dougalux. Yep, it's having courage, but it's what specific type of courage in this context, and the courage is around basically like not being afraid of losing her, being able to courageously stand without her. All right, and then this calls into your other issues, because if you're afraid, if you notice that you're afraid to do this, if you're afraid of her getting upset, if you're afraid of her leaving your life, then this is an opportunity for investigation. And this will pop up like when you start thinking about it. You start thinking like, okay, I'm gonna unbalance things in my relationship. I'm going to try to bring more weight onto my side of the scale. And then this, just in thinking about it, guys will have some sort of anxiety. And that's not an opportunity to shy away from it. That's actually an opportunity to start investigating it more. That's really what needs to happen. You need to start investigating this even more. And this will lead you to the truths that are inside you that brought you to this problematic space to begin with. And that's what's really important, because that's really where you're trying to be. You're trying to understand what was going on inside you, or what has been going on inside you, that's created the shitty reality that you're currently sitting in. All right. And so once you understand it and where it's there, and then you start questioning these things like, well, why am I afraid of this? Why is this bothering me? Why does this give me anxiety? And you start questioning these things and try to dismantle them and try to understand that they don't really exist. These are fears that you've been conditioned to be afraid of. But all fears are the same. They're just thoughts. They're just thoughts mixed with emotions, and usually some sort of perception or belief. And so they're just these weightless, formless things in your head. And, so if that's the case, then they're not exactly real. Okay. What do they say? The only real fear is fear itself, or the only thing to be afraid of is fear itself, whatever. I don't know what it is, but like, that's the only real fear. Okay. And that thing itself doesn't actually really truly exist. It's just like a machination in your mind. Right. So when you're thinking about this, that's the time to really analyze yourself, and hopefully you've got maybe a mentor or, a coach or something like that can help you through this, or a father or an uncle or something along those lines that doesn't have this fear, and they understand exactly where you are and they know where you need to be. So you got to have your balls. You have to get rid of your fear of losing her, and you have to get rid of your fear of her upset emotions, because they're going to happen. When you start shifting that power, she's likely going to be a little upset by it, either like with anger or frustration, confusion, anxiety, something along those lines. And I told you the story about this old client of mine. It was like one of my earliest clients, I think. Yeah, one of my earliest clients. And Latino guy, and he had this classic old stereotypical dragon lady, angry, fiery Latina for a wife. And he was a great guy, right? He was just kind of soft, and he didn't like it. He didn't like that. He didn't like the power differential the way it was. And, his wife was just like frustrated and stiff, like all the time. She always had an edge to her. And he knew that, like, in her heart of hearts, he knew that she didn't enjoy being that way either. And so he started training with me and, doing his routines and things of that nature, started working with his head and his behaviors and his habits. And he slowly started changing. And she noticed him doing these morning and evening routines, because that's the part that she can actually see. And she started flipping out. Like, it started giving her anxiety, because she thought that he was readying himself for the dating market, which was an interesting little, side benefit, right? It produced what the early red pill guys would call as dread, right? And dread is a very useful tool when a woman believes that you are able to be taken by other women, that you have access to other women, or you're interested in other women. This can cause, major dread. The unfortunate thing about using dread, this is just a little tangent about dread, is that you have no idea how she's going to react. So she could react very positively and start putting more attention and positivity towards you, or she could react negatively and she could drop back, she could vanish, she could run away. She could get angry. So you never know. It's kind of like you don't really know someone's true character until you put them in an extremely stressful situation. And then you can really see their character. And it's kind of like that. But but yeah, so he started changing and she started flipping out because she started noticing like her grip on him started lessening. Like she couldn't keep a hold on him because he was listening to me more than he was trying to kowtow to her. And this, this made her feel anxious. And, and he had to explain. He's like, listen, baby, everything's all right. Like, I'm not trying to leave you. We're married. We're going to stay married. I'm just doing these things, with my coach in order to better my life, to change myself and make me feel better. And so he reassured her that he wasn't leaving or planning to leave. And, over time, things started shifting. And, next thing you know, it's like he's like passing through the kitchen, walks by her, and, she's like, giving him like a gentle rub across the back, across his shoulders, little pat on the butt, telling him that he looks sexy, things like that. And so he noticed that these things started shifting, away, but there was this confusing and anxiety producing transition period for them. And she did not like it. Like she was really, really upset because, she was losing, she thought that she was losing control. And so when you've got a timid, docile sort of, a tame man at home, and I talked about this in my episode earlier today about how kind of useless a tame guy is. Like when you're fully tame, there's really nothing for a woman to do with you because you're completely obedient and tame. And, so it's like, because part of the allure of men, and part of the allure of like the fantasy that women have of, this ideal male archetype that's in their mind, is the concept of this, what I mentioned earlier today is this beast who she is able to unearth a tender side to him. She brings it out, like through her charm and her seduction and through her sex. She's able to bring out the soft side of him and tame this beast. Okay, like there's this little bit of a project thing going on here. She's taking this uncivilized monster and making him a bit more civilized, but more or less only for her. Okay, and women love this. They absolutely do. They like kind of like taking that caveman and dressing him up a little bit and cleaning him up a little. And so, he was this tame guy. He was just like super docile. He was a great dude, like good heart, awesome father, very responsible. And he just, but he was super tame. He was super easygoing. And when you're like this with women, it actually frustrates the hell out of them because they feel like they can get away with anything, that they feel like they don't have much of a man because you're like a little lapdog, right? You're not like a dog, right? You're just this little lapdog. You're like, like come sit on your lap, and you get curly white fluffy hair and very cute, and you can eat your little treats and snuggle with mommy and that sort of shit. And but just when she's looking at her man, like that's really frustrating for a number of women. And seriously, it pisses them the fuck off, What's up, boxing? Hey, Leaning, good to see you. You're a new face in here, so welcome. Stick around. It seems with your comments here and here that this information might not be common to you. So please, we invite you to stick around and have a listen. So yeah, as much as society would like to encourage guys to be docile at home and to be very friendly and just very accommodating, if you do too much of that, it's really going to drive your woman up the wall. And there's going to be a drop in respect, and when that drops too low, it turns into resentment. And if she has a certain sense of duty, or she has like a strong belief in marriage, and she's just like, no, like, this is the guy I chose, this is my lot in life, it's gonna just put her in a fucking bad mood forever. Okay, so it's almost like I don't like using the word should, but it's almost like you should try to switch around the power differentials in your relationships if you aren't there now. Like, if things are egalitarian, if things are just easygoing or whatever, there's no polarity. Like, I'm reluctant to say shoulds because I don't like using shoulds. You should do this. I can almost guarantee that it's going to benefit your relationships by flipping things around. Okay. So we talked about having balls. We talked about having balls and having courage to lose her, having courage to face her upset emotions during transition period. And so another skill that you're going to have to get comfortable with is, hey, what's up, Kevinism7? Another skill that you're going to have to get used to is the use of the word no. And you're going to have to practice it. And you're going to have to practice it with small things. You're really going to have to practice, like, just very small things. Like, say you're doing some work on your laptop, you're writing, I don't know, you're doing something. And your wife says, hey, honey, can you take out the trash? And you just straight up say, no, I'm busy right now. I'll do it later. And just being very flat, very straightforward, very direct. You're not being rude about it, but you're just being flat and straightforward about it. No, I'm busy. I'll tend to it later when I'm done. Or if you really want to get good with it, you are specific. So you check the time and you say, look, I'm doing something right now. I'm busy. I will tend to it in an hour or a half hour or 45 minutes or an hour and 15 minutes, whatever it is. And you get specific about it. All right. And then you stick to that, right? Because a lot of times, guys who are, afflicted with, the nice guy syndrome that puts you in these compromising situations is that typically their word is shit. Like these really nice guys, usually their word is worth nothing. There's a lot of deception, and they're always just really like fucked up and soft, but they really have a difficult time sticking with their word, and they'll often not make solid claims like that to avoid having to stick to their word. So they won't make solid claims like, I will do this at this time on this day. They typically won't do this. What do you got here, Kevin? What's up? Checking out Billion Wicked Thoughts audiobook, chapter 7. Yeah, it's very scientific. It's nerdy. It's a good book, but just understand it was made by engineers. And so there are a couple of nerds who don't understand women who are trying to understand women. And in only the way that they know how is through an engineer's type thinking, an engineer's type approach to problem solving. And that's a problem with nerds. Like, geeks is another thing, okay? Geeks can figure out women. Nerds can't. All right, so nerds are like mental technicians who they view the world in a certain way, and they usually find themselves doing programming in IT. They're just very analytical and system-based thinkers. All right, and you can't apply this to women. It just doesn't work. And they can't understand it because they're like, well, fuck, everything else in life I can apply this sort of thinking to with great success. Why can't I apply it to women? And it's just, women are too squishy. They're too amorphous. They're too much of a chameleon to apply a system. Okay? So really, if you're truly interested, hold on. If you're truly interested in applying a system, what you do is you apply the system to yourself. you apply the analytical thinking and the structured thinking to yourself, making yourself more predictable, which then in turn, just by proxy, will start affecting your woman. You know, kind of like in the story that I was telling you about, that old client of mine. He started affecting his wife because he started becoming more consistent. And because this was out of the norm for him, it started making her feel weird. All right, made her feel really uncomfortable and full of anxiety. So yeah, if you're a system-based thinker, you're gonna have trouble understanding women, but you'll have greater success applying that and understanding yourself. If you're a geek, all right, geeks are people who are just extremely interested in a certain topic. All right, so classic is like, you know, like I'm a motorcycle geek, right? I love everything about motorcycle culture. There's Trekkies, right? Like all those like comic book convention dudes, they're all geeks. All right. Video game people, like video game enthusiasts, they're geeks, right? Dudes who are like way into anime, well, and women, like people who are really into anime, they're geeks. They're just like super, super into whatever that thing is, and it makes them into a geek. So geeks, or that geek mentality, can actually work very well in terms of figuring out how to, you know, handle and maneuver with women. It works out pretty good, but it's not a prerequisite. So yeah, if you want an interesting, more scientific read, check out A Billion Wicked Thoughts. You know, and actually, after downloading the audiobook, I was just looking for other people's breakdown of it on YouTube, and I discovered that there's a full-length audiobook of A Billion Wicked Thoughts on YouTube. You know, but whatever, I only spent $10 on the audiobook, so it's not that big of a deal. But anybody else, go on YouTube and just look for A Billion Wicked Thoughts. There's the full-length audiobook on there. It's something like 9 hours or some shit. So, but there's this. Yep. If you're not able to say no to your woman, she's going to despise you. Yes. So that's really a super, super useful and important tool, because this is part of being a leader as well. So when you're a leader, you're going to have to make certain calls, right? You're going to have to make certain decisions, and you know, sometimes you know, it's not going to be beneficial to her. She's not going to like it. You know, sometimes she's not going to be happy with what the decision is. And yeah, and she's going to be upset. She's going to pout. I can't stand pouting. But yeah, and you're going to have to be okay with just saying no to her. And this is what it is. And it's really weird because, you know, and this is just an indication of like how many guys out there are truly afflicted with the nice guy syndrome, because there's so many guys who are afraid of saying this little 2-letter, 1-syllable word. It's that powerful. It's so tiny. Like it reminds me of that from Men in Black, like the first one with Will Smith, and they were looking for guns, and they open up the chest, and the other agent, whatever, he hands Will Smith's character a gun, and it's like this teeny tiny gun. He can like barely fit his finger around the trigger, but this thing is so super powerful. Again, he shot it once and like blasted him across a field. You know, no is like that. It's this 2-letter, 1-syllable word, but it packs so much punch. But you need to be you need to be sure-footed enough, just like that little gun. You need to be grounded enough to handle using this word. Like, you can't have any fear, you can't have any discomfort. You just have to be really comfortable in saying no. And being comfortable with that ties into the balls thing from before. Like, you have to be all right with her being upset. You have to be all right with her just wanting to leave because she's that pissed off at you, right? You just let him go. You just let him go. It's not that big of a deal. And this is especially hard for guys who are married, right? It's especially difficult for them because they're afraid. There's too much fear there. But the thing is, it's like, well, do you want to live in quiet desperation for the rest of your life, or are you going to risk this for a chance at freedom? And what's your choice? And you'd be surprised how many guys are living in quiet desperation. Tons of you guys. Probably, like, you guys who are listening, no doubt your dads are probably like that. They were probably just living in this quiet hell. And they just get comfortable there. They're like, yeah, it's pretty good. It's better than being out in the rain by myself. And they'll come up with justifications to make it seem better, to make it seem okay. Right? They're like, yeah, at least, I'm a good dad and I get to be with my kids and stuff like that. Or, at least, hey, I get to be in this nice house, and, hey, at least I don't have to go through divorce like Bob did. And, they just kind of gather around like all these, like, the fluffiest things that they possibly can to make them feel comfortable about the shit they're sitting in, and like distract themselves with these justifications. And like, high chances are that your dads were in that situation, just because the nice guy syndrome, it's a virus that spreads. It spreads from father to son, or sons. And it just goes on. It's pervasive. It's a wicked virus. And so it sets up guys to be in this place where they kind of feel like they're fucked either way. But the funny thing is that by taking up yourself, by taking up the mantle of yourself, you're freeing yourself from that position. And you have to adopt a mentality of let the chips fall where they may. Okay? Because this is part of manhood, which is taking risk. It's really important. Man. I don't smoke weed anymore, but I feel like I did. I've got like crazy cotton mouth this evening. But yeah, so after you've mustered up the courage to and I don't mean to laugh at that, but after you've mustered up the courage to put some charge back into your balls, you're okay with her getting upset. You're okay with her possibly leaving. And you're comfortable with saying no. The next thing is being able to give commands. And it starts off very simple. It starts off really, really simple. And basically, it works like this. Any question that you might have that you were about to ask of your girlfriend or your wife, you just switch it into a command. And that's all you have to do. And it makes it a little bit more palatable if you use please. All right. And I'm fine with that. Like, you don't have to be a super cold dickhead. It's totally fine to use general manners when you're giving commands. All right. So if you were about to go out, into the garage or something like that, or go out to the garden, and instead of saying, hey, honey, can you please get my jacket? You just say, hey, honey, get my jacket, please. It's a subtle difference, but that subtlety, it makes all the difference, right? Like, I don't know if you've practiced anything that requires, high level of skill, anything from, martial arts, playing the guitar, painting, like anything that has to do with like fine tuning in terms of movement or what have you, you know what I'm talking about, where the slightest shift in something will make a massive impact. And it's crazy how these things work out. Like if you ever like roll in jiu-jitsu, your teacher you'll be in a certain position and your teacher will say, just shift your hips a little bit to the left. And then you do this, and then it just, because of mechanics, the body mechanics, the way they are, it opens up things completely. And now you can either escape or you can apply something. And it's like that. So, if you're playing guitar and you're like working the frets and someone tells you, oh, you just shift your hands just a little bit this way, or you cock your wrists slightly this way, and it changes everything. Just a little shift in your hand. So just by having that shift in your language of just saying, shifting it from, will you please get my jacket, to get my jacket, please. It's very small, but it leaves a large impact. And she might be like, what? And this is something that you're going to have to be okay dealing with. And so it really depends. So this is going to give you a lot of feedback depending on how she responds to that. It'll be great if she just does it. All right. This is the most ideal scenario. The most ideal scenario is that she just hears you, grabs a jacket, and gives it to you, and you go out to the garage or into the garden or whatever the hell you were going to do. Okay. The most unideal situation is where she stops, doesn't do anything, and she goes, what did you say? And you're going to have to repeat yourself. Do not flip back. You're going to want to. Your emotions are going to want to. You're going to want to say, go back to what you would have originally said, like a pussy, and say, will you get my jacket, honey? And turn it back into a question. And if she's a real bitch, she's going to say, I thought so. Or something along those lines. Okay. You can't do that. You have to stick to the thing, because remember, the prerequisites must be set in. They must be set in stone, right? The concrete has to completely dry. The fear, you can't have the fear. You have to be all right with her being upset. You have to be all right with her having some pushback. You have to be all right with her, possibly leaving, like either like leaving the situation or leaving the relationship. That has to be set in stone. Otherwise, you're going to flip back. You're going to get scared. Your asshole's going to pucker up. Your ball's going to get sucked up into your stomach, and you'll be like, oh, okay. And you like duck your head and put your tail between your legs and go back to the way you were. And then you come back to me and be like, oh, Justin, you're a fucking sham. You don't need to fucking talk about it. I tried it. And she, it didn't work on the first try before I knew what the fuck I was doing. Okay, buddy. If you have that instance, and I think that those situations are going to be not super common, but hey, sometimes men are married to, rock hard bitches. So if she has any kind of pushback, you just repeat yourself exactly the same way as you said it the first time. And you say, get my jacket, please. I'm heading out to the garage. And if she like freezes, or she's, like kind of like aghast with what you're doing, you just walk over, grab your jacket, and go out to do the thing. Do not say anything passive aggressive or sarcastic. All right. So don't be like, thanks, right? Like, thanks for nothing. And then like prance off into the garage. Don't do that. Just walk over, grab your jacket, put it on, and walk out. All right. One of the things, the reason why I say this, because one of the things that guys have when they are afflicted with the nice guy syndrome is they're too fucking wordy. They explain themselves too much. They talk way too much to explain themselves, because if there's any sort of criticism about their behavior, they want to quickly smooth things out as fast as possible. And they're like, no, don't look at the mess. Don't see. All right. See, it's smooth again. It's okay. It's all right. There's no problem here. It's good. It's smoothed out. There's no problem. And then she's like, okay. And he's like, whew. I dodged that one. Man, she started getting upset sitting at the bar later with his friend. Man, she started getting upset, and oh man, I dodged a bullet on that one. Boy, I was almost going to sleep on the couch tonight. Oh man. My heart goes out to you guys who have to sleep on the fucking couch. Don't do that. Don't do that unless you choose to and it's really comfortable, because sometimes sometimes sleeping on the couch is more comfortable than sleeping on the bed. Maybe it's just me because I'm like 46, but I fucking love sleeping on the couch. I mean, I don't get kicked out to sleep on the couch, but just by choice. Typically it's not with my woman, but when I'm alone, sleeping on the couch is fucking awesome. I love that shit. Prancing like a princess. Yes, prancing off. Yeah. You're a dating geek, skateboard geek, dancing geek, and so on, but I don't come off as a geek or a nerd because I'm me. Yeah, geeks don't have a look. It's just interest. Sometimes they do. Sometimes like geeks, they're like fully embracing their geekdom and they love that shit. They got like the fucking Naruto hat. They got the Naruto shirt with all the graphics all over it from different shows or different episodes. He's like, oh, and this one here is where like you battled Kazuya. And then over here is, Amarochi or whatever the fuck his name was. Yeah, so there's different types of geeks, but when you are one, you're one. And then you geek out with other guys. Yeah, so back to the wife, the pushback. So one of the main things there is, again, considering you've got all of the prerequisites, you have to start giving commands. Okay, you have to start giving commands. It's imperative. Because your words, so like our words are extensions of us, and they're sort of like these representatives of us, and so you can tell by someone's words how they see and feel about themselves. So it's really important that you start lining up your words with your new aims for your own identity. Okay. So you're going to have to start shifting things around with your behaviors and your habits and your patterns. And part of this is your speech. Okay. And so another part of the giving the commands is it doesn't just stop there. All right. So another habit that you need to develop is also recognizing when your woman is following commands. All right. So when she does do that, so let's say she does do this, right? Say you just, without asking the question, you say, honey, I'm going out to the garage. Grab my jacket for me, please. Or pass me my jacket, please. And she does it, right? She comes over and she gives you your jacket. You don't just like grab it and then go out. No, it doesn't stop there. You missed the spot. You have to acknowledge that she had done something that you had told her to do. All right. Now, you don't have to be that explicit, but you bring some sort of attention to it, right? And you can say thank you, or thank you for grabbing my jacket. Give her a little kiss on the cheek, and then go out, or however your relationship is. If it's a kiss on the forehead or a little smack on the butt, whatever it is. Okay, if you're just getting into this, you're definitely not going to be smacking her on the butt for that. But my point is that you need to bring awareness to her that you're seeing and acknowledging her following your commands. And this is really important because this is the starting point of positive reinforcement. And you do get a lot with negative reinforcement, okay, depending on the person. But you get a lot more with positive reinforcement, a lot more. So, like you look at work, there's always like the fear of punishment, but if you're getting rewarded for your efforts, studies have shown that you get more out of people by expressly making recognition of their efforts in like a specific way and then rewarding them for that. It charges them up and makes them want to perform better and perform more. So this is just a human thing. It's not a work thing, right? So you start working your relationships in this way, and it's extremely beneficial. Okay, so giving commands is not enough. That's just half stepping. You have to complete the step by making recognition and a verbal appreciation for following what you had said. And so to further this, you have to remind yourself to do this. So part of the change of offsetting the power is you have to grow an awareness for your own behaviors, because you've habitualized certain things. So now you kind of have to be a little bit detached and be always watching yourself for your own patterns. So if you're used to asking and asking and asking versus giving directions and giving commands and making statements, then you're not going to get it if you're not detached enough to start seeing your own patterns. So that's just a habit you're going to have to develop. Like you have to start catching yourself. If you don't have somebody monitoring you, like I monitor my students, like they're sending me messages and things of that nature, and I catch them on their patterns and call them out all the time until they start shifting. And then they start catching themselves on these patterns, and then I don't have to do it for them anymore, right? They do it themselves. And then that new behavior starts taking hold. So, you have to build that mental muscle to keep track of your own behaviors as you're shifting them, okay? You're trying to create new habits for yourself. So, let's see here. King Solo Power, I include myself. It sounds weird how some of us make women more important than us when she is the follower. Well, she's not the innate follower, right? They have to be assigned. And before they're assigned, it can't be to an empty seat. The seat has to be filled with you. So you have to take the seat, and then you can assign. You can assign from that seat. So, because many guys, they make the mistake of saying, she should be following me, but you're not seated in the position of leadership yet, or at all, right? You're not even really understanding how to do it. Okay. Too many guys are this way. They just think women should just follow as like their base operating system. And that's just what they should do. And it's like, no, that leads to destruction. That leads to women leading really poor lives, really shitty lives. So they can't do that for their own survival. They have to be very wary and choose men very carefully with whom they choose to follow, because it can lead to their ruin if it's done incorrectly. So it's incumbent upon the man to make sure that he's properly seated in his position first, right? Because leaders are first. The leader takes his position first, then he's able to delegate, okay? So you want to be consistent about these things. You want to be consistent about observing your own behavior so that you can start making changes within yourself and be consistent about those changes. And then also, like I said, being consistent with recognizing her changes as she's following you. So you can start with the positive reinforcement of creating that loop, and it's very Pavlovian. You know what I mean? Like the dog heard the bell, he gets the treat, starts drooling. Here's the bell, gets the treat, starts drooling. Here's the bell, no treat, starts drooling. And then it's like just the bell will cause the dog to drool. This is basically what you're doing, right? So the bell is your action, right? You giving the command, the treat, or like she does the thing, she comes back, she gets the treat. And you start creating this loop And the treat is your acknowledgement, your appreciation, your kiss on the cheek or whatever. Okay. And you can strengthen this in other ways. And this will start getting her awareness to what it is you're doing. Okay. Because it doesn't exactly go, unless she's of a certain mindset where you sit down and you're like, okay, I would like to create a power exchange type of relationship. Like they have to be on the same page in order for that to happen, to have like very frank and open conversation. And she's going to want to flip her position and he's going to want to flip his position. So, that's very rare. All right. So what you can do to get her mind aware of what you're doing, like in this long-term sense, is that as you're being consistent with your stuff, after some time, let's say like 2 weeks go by, and you notice she's been really consistent about this stuff as you've been consistent, and you're noticing that you're getting comfortable and she's following. Now you bring it to her attention with something. Okay. And you can say, I've been asking this of you. I've been, giving you commands, giving you direction, and I've noticed you've been taking to it very easily without any sort of problem. Maybe you didn't even notice, but I wanted to bring that attention to. I wanted to bring it to your attention, and then here is this. And you have to know your woman. You have to know the things she likes, what moves her, what she appreciates, what puts a smile on her face. Maybe it's just, some flowers or, some other kind of like small gift. But you bring attention that there's been a consistent 2-week pattern that's been going well. You're recognizing it, and you say, for that, because you've been doing this, I wanted to just share my appreciation for that with this gift. And so now you're like driving a nail into these boards that you're setting up. Okay. So that sets a very strong nail into the thing, because now you're making a direct acknowledgement of what you're trying to do here. And she's like, oh, okay. So I didn't even know I was doing these things perhaps. And she's like, oh, I didn't even know. So now she's like aware of what's happening and realizes now that if she plays along, she plays her position well, she gets rewards. Okay. So again, furthering the Pavlovian mechanics. Okay. So, they're actually both. So leadership, well, there's many to it. Leadership is a skill. Leadership is a choice to be in a position. Okay, to be in a position of a leader. Okay, leadership is what comes from being a leader. But yes, so yeah, leadership is a choice. But it is a position that you choose to be in. And when you choose to be in it, you got to understand, like, yes, fantastic things do come from this. They absolutely come from, absolutely, okay? But you also are assuming responsibility. So at the same time, when shit does not go as planned, because, we are not omniscient, omnipotent beings, okay? We're not. And sometimes things just don't go the way we intend. And then when that happens, you cannot say, well, you blah, blah, blah. You have to take on the full responsibility. You have to. So this is the other part. You need to develop a thick skin. You need to set your pride aside, and you need to have control over your ego that wants to protect, the softer sides of your personality. You have to be all right with that. You're not going to be a very effective leader if you spend time defending your pride and your ego and trying to blame shift and things of that nature. It will not work out for you at all. It will not work. So, and further, when you do this, you're sending her a message without, like, in a subtle way that, especially if she's been following you and you did the thing that, over a number of times where, every 2 weeks or something like that, you brought it to her attention. Now she's been on board, let's say, for like 6 months, and then something goes down and you blame shift. Now that's upsetting the whole dynamic that you had created. So you cannot be a blame shifter. When something happens, you take the blame because you're the one who's set the whole thing up. You've been monitoring the whole thing. You've been guiding it along this certain path. When things go awry, and they will, okay? We're not perfect. We're not robots. You have to assume responsibility completely, okay? And then also, like with your woman's behavior, if there's something that comes up and it's unexpected, it's something you didn't think of, and maybe it was embarrassing or something along those lines, that too, because you're gonna be like, fuck, I didn't catch that, I didn't think of that, and now that falls on your shoulders. So you're even responsible for the things that you don't yet know. And that's just the way it goes. But now, because of the situation, you do know. And now you're going to have to start managing that. All right. I had a guy ask me, we were talking about, we were talking about like behavior conditioning and things of that nature. And he's like, so does this just go on forever? Because he was introducing this into his relationship already, and he was coming to me for, guidance on like how to really set up the structure and how to monitor it. And he's like, so does this just go on forever? And I'm like, yeah, it kind of did. It kind of does. Like until like the duration of the relationship or you die. Okay. Now here's the thing. You're not going to be monitoring and managing the same things forever. Okay. You're going to be monitoring other things. So as certain things within you become habitualized and new things within her become habitualized, you no longer have to worry about those things. Like maybe every once in like you're going to be aware of it. Okay. But you're not going to have to monitor, okay, the way you were when you were first introducing whatever sort of behavior changes you wanted to instill. So those, kind of become less managed, but you're going to be adding more. You're going to continually, because you want to constantly improve you. You want to help improve your woman and improve your relationship. This is part of being a leader, because part of good leadership is growth mindedness. So you have to be growth minded. Like the status quo isn't good enough, right? It's good, but you want to make it better. There's always room for improvements, changes, ideas, creativity, things of that nature. So what you are, gosh, I don't like this song. I don't know why I have this in here. So, you're always going to be leveling things up and improving. But just to understand that the things you first introduced that become habitualized, you're not going to worry about them forever. And you're just going to be concerned yourself with new things as you're growing, as you're changing, as you're adjusting things, amending things. Okay. And yes, it's a forever process. So if what I've described to you sounds like a daunting task, then just figure something else out or go back to an egalitarian relationship. So, because this isn't like the only way. All right. I'm sure there's plenty of ways to set up a power differential in your relationship if that's what you want. This is how I know it. All right. If there's other, people out there who do this sort of thing, who knows, maybe they have their own other methods, other ways of looking at it, but this is what works for me. This is how I've seen prosperity in my relationship. So this is what I know works. And so this is how I'm just relaying it to you, as an option. So the last thing that I'm going to add to this, okay, because, once you get into past that point and structuring the relationships, it becomes very nuanced, and, it comes down to what you want as an individual and your vision and all this stuff. So we're not going to get into that, because that really just it breaks down from man to man, and it's not going to be helpful on a general scale here. So the next, I guess, the last thing that I'm going to add in here, as far as the things that you need to add into your relationship in order to start creating a power exchange, is in the bedroom. Okay. In the bedroom, you have to adopt the same kind of mentality, but it's going to express itself differently. Okay. So you have to start creating sexual power exchanges in the bedroom where you're typically going to be more dominant. Okay. So you're going to stop asking about anything in the bedroom. Is it okay if I? No more. Okay. I mean, if you're already sleeping with this woman for a while, or, you've been in a long-term relationship, you've been having sex for a while, your wife or whatever, you know her to a certain extent, where there's things that you've been doing that you don't have to ask for. Okay. Just like the coat example, all right, you're going to verbalize your wants in the form of statements and commands, right? So instead of saying, I don't know who does this, like, it sounds really awkward, even me saying it, but I'm sure people do it, where the guy is asking for a blowjob, right? Instead of doing that, you just tell her, suck my dick. And this is what you do. Like, don't ask. It's like, man, I can't even think about it. It sounds so awkward to ask for that. It's so weird. But I don't spend any time in other men's bedrooms, but I'm sure there's guys out there who ask. They ask for anything. Like, can I kiss you? Can you get on your hands and knees now? No, you just say, get on your hands and knees. Right? You want to hit it from the back. You either tell her, or you just don't say anything, and you grab her, flip her over, grab her hips, pull her up onto her knees, and maybe push her chest down to the bed. Now, I'm not saying use force. Okay. It doesn't take much to move a body. All right. Unless your woman is huge. It doesn't take much. Okay. So you don't have to use a lot of force, just assertiveness with your body. Okay. Express your wants. If you're going to express them verbally, make them simple and direct without asking for anything. And, you can do very simple things to, this is, again, this is for guys, if you guys have a fun sex life, this is probably normal for you. But for those of you who are looking for this bit of a power exchange, you want to flip that and be a little bit more dominant. You start with very simple things. Okay. Like I said, putting her in the positions you want her to be in. Okay. If you're comfortable, and you're going to have to try it at some point, but telling her to say, get on her knees. Okay. Telling her to take off her clothes, telling her to bend over. All right. These are just very simple commands. They're not hard. It's not fucking French. You just do it. Right. And, or moving her into position without any speech. All right. Another one is simple manhandling. Okay. Such as taking her hands and putting them over her head. Like, let's say she's on her back, right? Missionary, you take her hands, put them over her head, and you grab them with both hands. So her wrists are like this, with your hand grabbing both of them, and you pin them firmly to the bed, okay? With one hand. And then your other hand you can post up for support, and then you can fuck her that way. Just doing that simple thing, like just taking both of her hands and then grabbing it and putting it over her head on the bed. All right, that's a very simple thing. Grabbing from the back of the neck. All right, and you can do this in missionary. All right, and you don't even have to do anything with the grab. All right, just while you're a missionary, you just grab the back of her neck and you firmly hold it. Okay, that alone is a dominant feature. All right, from behind, same sort of thing. Right, you're in the doggy style position, and you take just one of your hands and grab the back of her neck. Okay, if you move to the front of the neck, you're gonna have to feel this out with some sensitivity, because if you've never had anything like that in your bedroom, you're going to have to feel it out, because some women can freak the fuck out with a hand around their neck. Okay. So what I would suggest is if you want to do this, don't do the front until you've done the back, right? Don't do the front until you've manhandled her, in a very simple and, non aggressive way. I don't want guys like misunderstanding me. Okay. It's just assertiveness. It's not aggressiveness. All right. Then you do this a few times, and then you can move to moving your hand here. Now, I'm not saying to choke. All right. I'm just saying putting your hand here and with, just like a grip, right? Not necessarily firm, but just letting her know that it's there. Okay. And this can be done in missionary, it can be done from behind. And these are just really, really simple things. Okay. Then after a while of this pattern, you can start adding in other things. You can add in just like a slightly more aggressive things, like grabbing her hair. Okay. And this can be done in any position, really. It doesn't matter. And just make sure that when you grab her hair, you're grabbing very, very close to the scalp. Okay. So for one, it's less painful. Two, you stand less of a chance of actually damaging and ripping her hair. And three, you get more control. All right. So there's more control when you have her hair very close to the head. Okay. So you can move that in, and then also spanking. Okay. Now we're not talking about like my kind of spanking, right? We're not talking BDSM spanking that is completely separated from sex. Okay, I'm talking about adding in a couple spanks here and there while you're having sex. All right. So if she's on top of you, you can spank. It's a very easy leverage position from there. From behind is very easy. Certain types of missionary you can, like if her legs are really far up and you've got them, and she's like curled, like this, and you're holding her, you can hold the legs up and, get her from there. But again, I would not add in the hands around the front of her neck, hair pulling or spanking until you've done this a number of times where you've moved dominance into the bedroom and you gradually work your way there. Okay. All the while, you're still doing the same stuff that I suggested outside the bedroom. Okay. Because you want to make the experience of you all inclusive. You want to make it an entire thing, okay, where this is just you everywhere. This is you in the kitchen. This is you in the bathroom. This is you in the car. This is you in the bedroom. This is you in the shower. This is you in the garden. Everywhere, this is you, all right? And you want to make the transition gradual so that she has an opportunity to adapt to it. All right. And frankly, you're not going to be able to do it quickly anyways, because it requires shifts and habitual patterns to change within you as well, which takes time and is gradual. So as you're changing yourself, she can then adapt to that. So I've got some questions in here, and then I'm going to, or look at these real quick. French ain't that difficult. Fuck yeah, it is. There's so many rules to French. There's so many rules. I'm actually studying Russian right now, and at first it was really, really hard. But it's funny because in the Russian language, they don't include. I forget what the structural name for it is, but they don't have like a my, like possessive things. Like they don't say like my book. They don't say like. Grab my book. They'll just say grab book, right? So it's like when you translate it directly to English, it's very cavemanish in that way. It's really kind of humorous. So they don't have possessive sort of things like yours, mine, things of that nature. It's really interesting. And they do. They say the moi and things of that nature, but it's not the way it is in English. It's really, really simplified. But yeah, French has a fuck ton of rules, like a lot of grammar rules. So I couldn't wrap my head around it. So what are you saying here, Dukalux? But if a guy gets just called a leader, although he is not doing the role of leader, that he expects certain things from his so-called position, that makes him not a leader. Yeah, of course. That's what I'm saying. Like when I was talking about being in that position, like you have to be the guy to lead before you start delegating. Yeah, you can't just put the hat on and call it a day. Certainly not. Yes, I see myself as verbally and physical dominant in the actual bedroom compared to out of the bedroom. Well, yeah, and like again, this isn't prescriptive, right? I'm not saying like this is how you guys should run your relationships. It's for those of you who want to have a complete switch, right? I know people who have perfectly well functioning relationships where there's dominance, there's a power exchange only when the bedroom door closes. I know couples who have a power exchange only when they're at home, right? So it only exists in the home. They go out of the home together, they go to the movies, they go on a trip, they go visit family. The power exchange does not exist. Okay? It's just easygoing, egalitarian stuff. But they get home, boom, it's like it goes right into structure, okay, right into protocol. So it really just, it's about, if you want this as part of your life, it's up to you to kind of figure out, well, how much, where and how much. Like, and so for me, I like it being 24/7 in every aspect of my relationship. That's just the way I like it. It feels very comfortable for me, and I know it's very comfortable for my woman. So it kind of works out in that way, right? So, Solar Power, are you in Canada? Yeah, so come on now. Like, of course, it's going to be easy for you if you speak French as your native language. But yeah, this summer I want to get back up into Canada. I've been to Toronto and it was all right. I would really like to visit Montreal because I used to live in Europe, and like I just love it there. And I've been told that it looks and feels like you're in Europe, like due to the architecture and obviously like the pervasiveness of French language. That you can basically just feel like you're immersed in Europe without actually being in Europe. So I'm looking forward to that. My dream idea is to rent the BMW adventure bike, the GS 1200, and like pack that up with like everything that I need, and then ride from New York to Canada, ride up into Canada, come back around, hang out in Montreal for a little while, and then ride back. But I don't know if I've got that kind of time. But that's one of my dream trips right there. So yeah, that's some of the basics about starting out in creating the shift in your relationships from egalitarian into something of a distinct power exchange relationship. Now, it's not true power exchange because in an exchange both people are conscious and aware. All right, so after a while of doing this consistently, then you can actually bring it up to your woman and say, making first note of her reflecting on how she's been feeling. And, making note of how, if things have been changing for the positive, making note of these positive changes. And then bring it to her attention. How do you feel about a power exchange relationship? And she'll be like, well, what is that? And then you can explain to her like, well, we've been at it, we've been doing this for the last couple of months. Oh, really? And then you're like, yeah, then you can start explaining to her, because if this is something you want to do, this is something that you should research about what a power exchange relationship entails. And then you can start really getting her involved in it, especially if she's feeling good about it. She's been feeling good about herself and how she's carrying on in the home and whatever. Then you can use that positive energy to basically explain, do you like how you're feeling? Well, you can have more. And we can creatively make this exactly how we want, right? By her assuming and creating her role, and you assuming and creating your role. And you can create this, like an amazing relationship through this. It just takes time. It takes time. It takes consistency. It takes effort. But if it's something you want, you can absolutely have this. What's up with wanting to feel like you're in Europe without actually being there? Oh no, like I totally get what you're saying. It's the fucking 7-hour flight. I can't stand long ass plane rides. It drives me at the fucking wall. Just the time, and so I can go to Montreal and use all of 2 days if I want, right? If I'm going to Europe, I'm definitely at least spending a week. And it's like the time expense, the financial expense, like my kids. It's like it's just a huge ordeal, right? To go to Europe to just hang out. So it's definitely going to be like 1 to 2 weeks at least. It takes at least 4 days to get over jet lag. So it's like, yeah, it's just not worth it. So you get like this little taste. You get a taste of like simulated Europe by going to Montreal. Well, at least France, anyways. So yeah, that's what it is. You're not being disrespectful at all. So yeah, I hope that show was beneficial to you. I hope that you gleaned some information that was helpful, inspiring. Like, and listen, if you want to have this in your relationships, you absolutely can. You just got to be afraid of losing the girl. It's really necessary. You have to be all right with potentially losing the girl, because if what you want has to be greater than your supposed need for her to be around. I know that sounds selfish, but hey, for all I know, this is our one and only shot at being alive. Okay, so make it the way you want. Right? Don't be one of those guys who just like rolls through their relationship in quiet desperation. Right? That's just a shitty way to live. Okay. So thank you guys for being here. Again, if you've got any questions about you want to set this up, get in touch with me, Justin@thedominanceacademy.com, and we can set up a call and we can talk more about how you can get this going in your relationships. And to that, thank you for those of you who are watching this on the replay, and we will see you next time. We out of here.